Deadwood, South Dakota Territory, 1876. The whiskey burned down Jack Vance's throat, but not enough to burn away the humiliation. In the crowded saloon, every eye fixed on him as Liam Murphy, the wealthiest rancher in the territory, explained the terms of the wager Jack had just lost. "You agreed, Vance. A man's word is his bond out here," Murphy declared, his voice carrying across the now silent room. "You'll marry the woman arriving on tomorrow's stagecoach from Boston. My cousin needs a husband, and you need to learn not to bet what you can't afford to lose." At 23, Jack had spent 5 years building a reputation as one of the fastest draws and finest horsemen in the territory. His ranch was small but growing. His future, bright. Now, with a foolish bet over a poker game, he'd wagered it all away. "I don't even know her name," Jack protested, running fingers through his wavy chestnut hair. His blue eyes, usually bright with confidence, now reflected only dread. Murphy grinned. Ruby Fairchild, and that's all you need to know until tomorrow." When dawn broke, Jack stood beside the stagecoach stop, dressed in his finest, not wedding clothes, but close enough. A pressed white shirt, dark vest, and the black hat he'd brushed clean of trailed dust. His face was freshly shaved, revealing a strong jawline that many local girls had admired from afar. "You clean up decent for a dead man walking," teased his best friend, Caleb Wilson. "I should never have taken that last hand," Jack muttered. "No pot was worth this. Murphy's been looking to marry off this cousin for years. Rumor has it she's homely as a mud fence and twice as rigid. Boston finishing school type." Jack's stomach nodded. Why would he ship her all the way out here instead of finding her a husband back east? Caleb shrugged. "Some say she's got a wooden leg. Others say she's touched in the head." The distant rumble of the approaching stagecoach silenced their speculation. Murphy and the town's preacher joined them, along with what seemed like half the town, all eager to witness Jack Vance's forced matrimony to a stranger. The stagecoach rolled to a stop in a cloud of dust. The door swung open. A gloved hand appeared first, followed by the most striking woman Jack had ever seen. She stepped down gracefully, her honey blonde hair catching the morning sun beneath a modest traveling bonnet. Her traveling dress, though dusty from the journey, was clearly expensive, its deep blue fabric complementing her fair complexion and the startling green of her eyes. Those eyes met Jack's with unexpected intensity, revealing neither fear nor excitement, just cool assessment. Murphy stepped forward. "Ruby, welcome to Deadwood. This here's Jack Vance, your intended." She offered a gloved hand, not to Jack, but to Murphy. "Cousin Liam, your correspondence failed to mention how young my future husband appears." Jack bristled. At 23, he'd lived more than men twice his age. "He's old enough to make and honor a bed," Murphy replied. "And you're past the age when most girls out here are married with 2 babes already." Ruby Fairchild studied Jack with an expression he couldn't read. "I see. And does Mr. Vance understand all the terms of this arrangement?" Murphy's laugh held a note of warning. "He understands enough. The rest can wait until after the ceremony." Before Jack could protest, the preacher opened his Bible, and the impromptu wedding began. Standing beside this beautiful stranger, Jack felt as if he were watching himself from a distance, hearing his own voice speak the vows that would bind him to a woman he'd met minutes before. "I now pronounce you man and wife," the preacher announced to the gathered crowd. Rather than the customary kiss, Ruby offered Jack her arm. "Shall we, husband?" As they walked away from the stagecoach stop, whispers followed them. Jack caught fragments. "Poor fool, Murphy's revenge," and "wonder when he'll discover the truth." What truth? Jack wondered, casting a sideways glance at his new bride. What was Murphy hiding about this woman? "Your ranch," Ruby said, breaking the silence. "How far?" 3 miles west. "It's not much yet. It will do. For now." Her cryptic reply raised more questions. At the small ranch house Jack had built with his own hands, Ruby removed her gloves and bonnet, surveying the modest cabin. "You live alone?" "I did. Until about an hour ago." Jack crossed his arms. "Look, Mrs. Vance, Miss Fairchild, please. At least until we know each other better." Jack's patience snapped. What kind of woman agrees to marry a stranger in a frontier town? The desperate kind. Her voice remained level, but something flickered in those green eyes. The kind with secrets. "Just like you." "I don't have secrets." Her laugh was soft but knowing. Everyone has secrets, Mr. Vance. Especially men who gamble away their freedom on a poker hand. Before Jack could respond, hoofbeats approached. Through the window, he saw Caleb riding hard toward the cabin. "Jack," Caleb called, dismounting in a hurry. "Murphy's spreading word around town. Says your new wife is worth more than all his cattle combined." Ruby's face paled. "He promised me time." "Time for what?" Jack demanded. "Who are you really?" She moved to the window, checking the trail behind Caleb. "We don't have much time. They'll be coming for me." "Who?" Jack and Caleb asked in unison. "My father's men." Ruby's composed facade cracked slightly. "Frederick Fairchild doesn't accept being defied, especially not by his only daughter." Jack's mind raced. Frederick Fairchild, the railroad baron whose name appeared in newspapers even out here. "You're that Fairchild? But why would I had to disappear? Liam promised me sanctuary, a new identity through marriage." Her eyes held Jack's. "I didn't know it would be through trickery." Caleb whistled low. "Murphy played you, Jack. Getting you to marry an heiress who's running from something? That's no punishment. That's a complication," Jack finished. "Miss Fairchild, I think it's time you told me exactly what I've gotten myself into." Ruby hesitated. The sound of more horses approaching made the decision for her. "Later," she promised. "If we survive the next hour." 5 riders appeared on the horizon, dressed in black suits that marked them as city men, not cowboys. Each wore a gun belt that looked well used. "Pinkertons," Ruby whispered. "My father's favorite solution to family problems." Jack reached for his rifle. "Caleb, get the horses ready. Miss Fairchild, whatever you're running from, you're my wife now. For better or worse. Even if it was just a bet." For the first time, Ruby Fairchild smiled. A genuine expression that transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. "You might regret that gallantry, Mr. Vance." The Pinkerton agents approached the cabin at a measured pace, hands hovering near their guns. "Mrs. Vance," Jack said, emphasizing her new surname. "I believe it's time to run." As they slipped out the back door toward the waiting horses, Jack wondered what secrets this woman carried, and why a railroad baron's daughter would flee to the wilds of Dakota Territory, seeking refuge in marriage to a stranger. The truth, he suspected, would indeed leave everyone speechless. 3 days in the wilderness had transformed Ruby Fairchild. Her elegant traveling dress was now torn and dusty, her blonde hair tied back in a simple braid, and her delicate hands were blistered from riding harder and longer than she'd ever done in Boston's gentle riding parks. Yet Jack had never seen a woman adapt so quickly. She didn't complain, not about the hard pace, the rough food, or sleeping on the ground. Whatever she was running from must be worse than this harsh journey. They'd lost the Pinkertons on the second day by crossing a swollen river where the agent's city horses wouldn't follow. Now, camped in a hidden valley where Jack sometimes grazed his cattle, they finally had a moment to talk. "Time for truth, Miss Fairchild," Jack said, passing her a tin cup of coffee. "Why is Frederick Fairchild's daughter hiding in Dakota Territory?" Ruby's fingers tightened around the cup. "My father arranged a marriage to a business partner 40 years my senior with a reputation for cruelty to his previous wives." Jack frowned. "Arranged marriages are for European royalty, not Americans. Business dynasties have their own rules. My father sees daughters as assets to be leveraged." Her voice grew distant. "When I refused, he locked me in my room until I'd come to my senses. I escaped with help from my lady's maid and wrote to cousin Liam, my mother's relative. And Murphy's solution was to marry you off to the first fool who lost a hand of poker?" Jack shook his head. "I only asked for shelter, perhaps work as a schoolteacher. The marriage was his idea." She met Jack's eyes. "He wrote that you were older. Established." "I'm established enough," Jack defended. "My 20 acres are paid for, and my herd is growing." Ruby set down her cup. "I've put you in danger. These men won't stop hunting me. The marriage certificate won't matter to them." "It matters to me," Jack said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "A Vance keeps his word, even when tricked into giving it. You don't even know me. I know enough. You'd rather face the wilderness with strangers than marry a wealthy man you despise. That shows character." Ruby studied him in the firelight, taking in his strong features, the determined set of his jaw beneath light stubble grown during their journey. "You're not what I expected, Jack Vance. Nor you, Ruby Fairchild." He hesitated. Or should I say Ruby Vance? A smile touched her lips. Perhaps, in time. If we survive. The moment stretched between them, full of possibilities neither had anticipated 3 days ago. Then Caleb, returning from scouting, interrupted whatever might have happened next. Riders coming up the South Pass, he reported. Not Pinkertons. Local men. Murphys. Jack stood. Murphy? What's his game now? He promised me protection, Ruby said. Perhaps he's keeping that promise, at least. But when Liam Murphy rode into their camp with 4 armed ranch hands, his expression wasn't that of a rescuer. There you are, he called. Making my job difficult, Jack. Jack placed himself between Ruby and the newcomers. What job is that? Keeping my cousin safe until her father's representative arrives. Murphy dismounted. Mr. Fairchild was most generous when I telegraphed him about Ruby's whereabouts. Ruby gasped. You betrayed me? Your own family. Business, cousin. Your father offered enough to buy the Double M ranch next door. I'd be a fool to refuse. Jack's hand moved to his gun. She's my wife now. You arranged that yourself. Murphy laughed. A marriage of convenience, easily annulled. Her father's lawyer arrives on tomorrow's train with papers declaring the ceremony void, along with a proper escort to return Ruby home. I won't go, Ruby declared, stepping beside Jack. You don't have a choice, cousin. Murphy nodded to his men. Separate them. The lady rides with me. What happened next surprised everyone. Jack didn't draw his gun. Instead, he grabbed Murphy's shirt and spoke low enough that only the rancher could hear. You set this up from the beginning. You knew I wouldn't lose to Simmons unless the deck was stacked. Murphy's eyes widened slightly. Confirmation enough. Jack continued. I let you win because I was curious what game you were playing. Now I know. He released Murphy with a small shove. You're not taking my wife anywhere. Caleb, who had quietly circled behind Murphy's men, now held his rifle ready. 4 against 2 isn't great odds, but I like our chances. Murphy reassessed the situation. Be reasonable. Her father's offering a fortune. I'm not for sale, Ruby stated firmly. And apparently, neither is my husband. For a moment, tension hung in the air like gun smoke. Then Murphy backed down. You're making a mistake, both of you, he warned. Frederick Fairchild doesn't lose. Neither do I, Jack replied. Not when it matters. As Murphy and his men rode away, Ruby turned to Jack. You knew the game was rigged? Why would you go through with it? Jack's expression softened. Because sometimes, Miss Fairchild, a man needs fate to push him towards something he'd never have the courage to reach for himself. In the fading light, with danger temporarily retreated, something shifted between them, something neither had expected when this journey began. The telegram arrived at the Deadwood Sheriff's Office 1 week later. Fairchild stop arriving June 10th. Stop prepare TO, surrender my daughter. Stop resistance, will be met with full legal force. Stop Sheriff Donovan rode out to Jack's ranch personally, finding the young couple repairing the corral fence together. Ruby's golden hair was tied back with a simple ribbon, her borrowed work clothes covered in dust, yet she looked more alive than any society portrait could capture. 3 days, Jack said after reading the telegram. Not much time to prepare. Prepare for what? The sheriff asked cautiously. You can't fight Frederick Fairchild. He owns judges from here to Boston. Ruby wiped her hands on her apron. Sheriff, may I ask a hypothetical legal question? Donovan nodded, curious. If a woman over 21 marries of her own free will, can her father legally force her to return home? No, ma'am. Not legally. But men like your father make their own laws, she finished. I'm well aware. After the sheriff departed, Jack and Ruby sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the hills gold. We could run, Jack suggested. The Montana Territory is vast. We could disappear. Ruby shook her head. I'm tired of running. And you've worked too hard for this land. It's just dirt and grass without you, Jack said, the words escaping before he could consider them. Ruby looked at him with surprise. Jack Vance, is that sentiment from a man who married me on a bet? Maybe losing that bet was the luckiest moment of my life. He took her hand, still marveling at how natural it felt after such a short time. Ruby, I know this isn't the marriage either of us would have chosen, but isn't it? She squeezed his hand. I prayed for a man who would see me, not my father's fortune, who would stand beside me, not above me. And you got a dusty cowboy with more cattle than cash. Her laugh brightened the gathering dusk. Perhaps God has a sense of humor. Jack grew serious. When your father comes, what do you want to do? Ruby's green eyes held determination. Stand our ground. Together. That night, they shared their first real kiss under the stars. Not the obligatory peck of their hasty ceremony, but a true meeting of hearts that had found unexpected common ground in extraordinary circumstances. In town the next day, they received unexpected support. The women of Deadwood, hearing Ruby's story from the sheriff's wife, rallied around the young bride. The men, many of whom had suffered under Frederick Fairchild's railroad monopoly, stood with Jack. A man's home is his castle, declared the blacksmith, even against railroad kings. By the time Frederick Fairchild's private train pulled into Deadwood Station on June 10th, the entire town seemed prepared for battle. Fairchild emerged like an emperor, flanked by lawyers and private security. At 60, he remained imposing, tall, broad-shouldered, with steel-gray hair and cold eyes that had intimidated senators and presidents. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded of the waiting sheriff. "Mr. Fairchild," Sheriff Donovan replied carefully, "your daughter is a married woman now. A sham marriage to a fortune hunter." "I have papers." "Actually, sir," interrupted a voice from the crowd, "you'll find everything in order." Judge William Parker, the territory's most respected jurist, stepped forward. "I've reviewed their marriage certificate myself. It's binding and legal in every jurisdiction in this country." Fairchild's face flushed with anger. "I'll have your position for this." "You're welcome to try." The judge smiled thinly. "But your reputation precedes you, Mr. Fairchild, particularly regarding your treatment of your previous business partners in the Dakota Territory." The crowd murmured in agreement. The railroad had broken promises and crushed many local businesses during its expansion. "Where is Ruby?" Fairchild demanded again. "Right here, father." The crowd parted as Jack and Ruby approached hand in hand. Ruby wore a simple blue dress borrowed from the general store owner's wife, her hair arranged by the local girls into a style both practical and flattering. Beside her, Jack stood tall in his best clothes, his natural confidence evident in every step. Fairchild's eyes narrowed. "So this is the cowboy who stole my daughter." "I wasn't stolen, father. I chose." Ruby's voice remained steady. "Jack is my husband now, legally and in every way that matters. For your fortune, no doubt." Jack stepped forward. "Sir, with all respect, I didn't know who Ruby was when we married." "I still don't want your money." Fairchild scoffed. "Every man has his price." "Not this one," Ruby insisted. "That's why I love him." The word hung in the air between them. Love. Neither had said it before this moment. Jack's eyes never left Ruby's as he replied, "And I love her, sir. Not for who her father is, but for who she is." Frederick Fairchild had broken companies, ruined rivals, and bent laws to his will for decades. But faced with the united front of his daughter and this young rancher, supported by an entire town, he recognized a losing battle. "You're making a mistake, Ruby," he said, his voice softening slightly. "This infatuation won't last." "Perhaps not," she acknowledged. "But it's my mistake to make." She extended her hand. "You're welcome to visit us, father. As a guest, not a dictator." For a long moment, Frederick Fairchild stared at his daughter's offered hand. Then, surprising everyone, he took it. "Your mother was just as stubborn," he said gruffly. "I should have expected no less from her daughter." The tension in the crowd eased as father and daughter shared their first honest moment in years. Later, as Fairchild prepared to depart, he approached Jack alone. "If you hurt her," he said simply, "there's nowhere on earth you can hide from me." Jack nodded. "If I hurt her, I wouldn't bother running." Fairchild studied the young man. "You're either a very clever con man or exactly what you appear to be. Just a man who got lucky at losing, sir." To everyone's astonishment, Frederick Fairchild laughed, a genuine sound rarely heard in Boston's boardrooms. "Perhaps Ruby inherited her judgment from me after all." As the train pulled away, Jack turned to Ruby. "Did that just happen? Did your father actually accept us?" "Accept is a strong word," Ruby smiled. "Let's say he's reserving judgment. And this?" Jack gestured between them. "What you said about loving me." Ruby's eyes sparkled. "That was the truth, Jack Vance. The truth that left everyone speechless, especially me." Jack pulled her close. "I never thought losing a bet could be the beginning of winning everything that matters." 1 year later, the Vance Ranch had transformed. With careful investment of Ruby's trust fund, which her father had surprisingly released to her control, they had expanded to neighboring properties, built a proper house, and established one of the most promising cattle operations in the territory. But more importantly, they had built a marriage, day by day, choice by choice. On their first anniversary, they hosted a celebration that brought together the entire community that had stood with them against Frederick Fairchild. Even Murphy was invited, having made amends after admitting his scheme. "I figured you'd refuse to marry her once you knew who she was," Murphy confessed over whiskey. "Or that you'd take her money and run. Never imagined you'd actually fall in love." Jack watched Ruby across the room, laughing with the local women who had become her friends. "Neither did I. Funny how losing a bet can be the best thing that ever happened to a man." When the guests departed, Jack led Ruby to the porch swing he'd built for her birthday. "Happy anniversary, Mrs. Vance," he said, presenting her with a small wooden box. Inside lay a delicate gold locket. When Ruby opened it, she found a pressed flower on one side. A prairie rose from the spot where they had first truly connected during their escape. "It's perfect," she whispered, brushing away a tear. "I have something else for you," Jack said, suddenly nervous. "A letter came while you were in town yesterday." He handed her an envelope bearing her father's company seal. Ruby opened it cautiously, then gasped. "He's coming to visit next month," she read aloud. "And he's bringing Mother." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Your mother whom you haven't seen in 5 years? The one he kept saying was too ill to travel." "The very same." Ruby shook her head in wonder. "He writes that she insisted on meeting the man who accomplished what diplomats and business partners never could." "What's that?" "Making Frederick Fairchild compromise." Ruby leaned against Jack's shoulder. "It seems our unexpected marriage has had unexpected consequences far beyond Dakota territory." As the stars appeared above their land, truly their land now, built with both their dreams, Jack marveled at how thoroughly his life had changed since that fateful poker game. "You know," he murmured into Ruby's hair, "if anyone had told me a year ago that losing everything would be the beginning of finding everything I never knew I wanted." Ruby turned in his arms. "The best gambles are the ones you don't even know you're making." Under a Dakota sky full of promise, the cowboy who lost a bet and the mysterious stranger he was forced to marry sealed their anniversary with a kiss that spoke of all the adventures yet to come, a truth that would have left their former selves completely speechless.